Okay, we're up to Daf Mem Test the Mishnah, but just to finish off on a bit of a loose end that we concluded with yesterday, and I just got some more information about it. So yesterday we came up with an idea that in order to be a ger, you had to be at Har Sinai. As we had a basic question: is how is it possible Antoninus had such clarity, and he had to ask Rabbi, do I have a chelik in the next world? And we asked also Gershon is Gaia. What do you mean Gershon is Gaia? Akam Shen is Gaia. He's not a ger, he's a guy. He's Megaya. So what do you mean Gershon is Gaia? What do you mean that Antoninus, he had to ask Rabbi does he share in the next world? And we wanted to say that, in fact, that in order to be a ger, you had to, neshama have to be at Har Sinai. I found that to be true, but just one more kanech. I heard from Swali Bornstein, he used to be born on an old shmooze again on a raid that he spoke out on Beitza. He brought an Arsugi, he brought the Sefer the Chida, Pesach Inayim, and he said the following. He said, when the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, beginning of Avodah Zarah, brings that Torah was offered to all the nations of the world. They all refused. The only ones who accepted it was us. So it was there had to be among the nations some individuals that wanted to accept the Torah. It couldn't be every single guy who wanted to accept the Torah. There had to be certain individuals, says the Chidah, that want to accept the Torah. Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is not kapeach schar kol berev. It doesn't hold back. Even the dog, right? He gets the vela. He doesn't hold back any schar. So these people, these are the gerim that were present at Sinai. In other words, that's the step before, guys. I picked it up at you had to be at Sinai. These are the neshamas, the guys who accepted Torah, the individuals, gerim. Those are the ones at Sinai. And I was pleased to hear that he accepted our raya as well. The raya that we brought yesterday, the four, why do they suffer, Gerim? And the Achim said they suffer because they were delayed in going and joining Klal Yisrael. What do you mean they were delayed? Adarabba. No, because they innately Hashem is waiting for them because they wanted the Torah and they should have been part of the Torah. And that's
but they weren't physically there. The
neshamas. We're speaking about the neshamas. We're only speaking about the neshamas. But it's a very nice understanding of the Indians, that little more connection. That they were there even before Matan Torah. They were there before. The ones who chose to be at Sinai were the ones whose neshamas were accepting of the Torah. That was the piece. Just to conclude, a very interesting piece about Gerus in general. And there's a very beautiful medrash. If you really want to just to finalize this, there's a very sad ma'isa at the end of Shmuel Beis. We're going to Shmuel Beis. We're going to see it and Daf Ayin Ches and Yevamot. So it's like it's a little preview that David HaMelech at the end of his life there is a famine. There's a rav, and he asked the Rebbe. The answer came back that is al shol and givonim. So what is shol? It says they weren't masped shol correctly because shol was killed in battle and his body was in Yavish Gilad. And I'll givonim that when shol let Doeg wiped out Novir Kahanim, the givonim, those are the people who fooled Klal Yisrael b'mei Yeshua, and they were given to be water carriers and wood choppers for the Kahanim, hopefully to learn from their midas. So when the Novir Kahanim was destroyed, they lost their sustenance. They lost the people who support them. So therefore they were in hunger. When David offered to go ahead and fire them again, all they wanted was revenge. They wanted revenge on Shaul's children. They wanted revenge from what Shaul did to them. And you can imagine David was a king, so literally he could have given him a king's ransom. And nonetheless, you see. So the Medrash says, "B'zeh lashon." Guys, listen to this lashon of the Medrash. The lashon of the Medrash. The Medrash is found in Nasai, Perik Ches, and Perik in subcategory Dalid. I wrote down the lashon of the Medrash as soon as I find it. The Hagivonim, loy b'bnei Yisrael heima. The Gevonim were not part of Klal Yisrael. That's the lashon of the pasuk. Ein ruyin elu l'sari v'mam. The Medrash says they're not ready to mix into Klal Yisrael. Afal pishe gerim heim. The guys, listen to this. Afal pishe gerim heim loy omdu avosehem al har Sinai. Even though they're gerim, they didn't. Even though they're gerim, heim loy omdu avosehem al har Sinai. They did not go about and stand by Sinai. What do you mean they gave him not Sinai? Very geschmack what was saying that, right? Right? They gave him, but they weren't by Sinai. So in other words, they were Megayah, but not for the right reasons. And therefore, because obviously they didn't have the midas of Klal Yisrael, Onu by Shana Rachman Megomei Chasadim, and all they wanted was revenge. So this gives us a more of an expanse of the cloud that we tried to say yesterday about Gerim and Sinai and Gary Emes. I think it's very nice. So the neshamas weren't there. Yeah, clearly the neshamas weren't there. So we go ahead and we segue from Gerim into the sugya of Mamzeris. So we spoke about this earlier in Daf Mem Dalid. We spoke that earlier in Daf Mem Dalid. Who is considered a mamzer? Who's considered a mamzer? And we said it's a three-year machlokes, and we're going to see it in the Mishnah over here. And tonight we're going to see the limud for it, which is it's a nice limud, and it's also introduction to using a chumash, because again, a large part of Masechta Yevamot is to understand the arayos from Pesukim, which are you just say the words, but there's ambiguity until you get to truly understand it. So we said there were three shittas. One first shita was the shita of the most machmidik shita was the shita of Rabbi Akiva. What was the shita of Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva held that any alav chayve lavim, there's mamzeris by chayve lavim. There's mamzeris by what? By chayve lavim. What's the mamzeris by chayve lavim? Is kedushin is not typhus by chayve lavim. It's hava hatalia. If kedushin isn't typhus, if kedushin doesn't work, then what? It must be that there's a union that Hashem doesn't want. So that union comes together, creates mamzerim. Guys, lashon mamzer is mumzar. It's a mum. It's a contraction of two words. Mum, a blemish, zar, a strange blemish. Mumzar, mamzer. So Hashem doesn't want that union. He doesn't want the union. Therefore, if a man is mekadesh a certain woman, it doesn't work. Therefore, so since Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that kedushin is not typhus by chayve lavim, then there's mamzer, and we'll see the extent of Rabbi Yehuda's Rabbi Akiva's din tonight. Rabbi Shimon HaTeimani, also known as the Chachamim, who we paskin like, says that's chayve krisis. That if the union together creates a chiyuv karis, that union will be a mamzer. Rabbi Yeshua is the most lenient opinion. He says only if chayve misas bezdin, only if the union coming together is chayve misas bezdin, would that create mamzeris. And that's the sugya of tonight. As Hashem will finish the parak tonight, and tomorrow we'll be back to Yevamot and some mimer and all the things that you missed. Says the Mishnah on them test. But bring the book. Eze mamzer, who is a mamzer who's not able to come to Kal Hashem, is kol she'er basa shehu b'la yavai. Any she'er basa that is la yavai. Now, she'er basa means relation, that the person is a relative. Rashi, kol kurva, any relative shehi b'lav. Vafilu by karis, and even if it's a relative that doesn't have karis, kigoyin anusas aviv. Rabbi Yehuda. We will see anusas aviv. A father is ma'anes a woman. If he forces himself upon a woman, which is a lav, right? A lav. That case, that would be if the son is with that woman, it's only a lavim. That would be the child would be a mamzer. Rabbi, and that's one type. And then he brings the second one is of course is if a man would marry a chalutza. The lav is what kivin shloi bana shloi yivna, right? It's a lav. A man's eishes ach, a man's brother's wife falls to biyibum. He gives the chalitza. That zika removes that relationship. But now kivin shloi bana shloi yivna, since he didn't go ahead and take advantage of doing the mitzvah of yibum, it will be what he lost his chance and to be a lav. So, but those would both be kurva relationships of a relative. Shimon HaTeimani Aimer, kol shechayv elav karis. Anyone that is a chiyuv of karis. But for example, if a man who marries chalutza would not be a mamzer. A man anusas aviv, l'chayra wouldn't be a mamzer, but we'll see, maybe. But lacha kidvarav, and the lacha is like what? Like his words. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Rabbi Yeshua is the most lenient. Kol shechayv elav misas bezdin. Any union that when they come together is chayv misas bezdin, that would be what? And that child will be a mamzer. Okay, that child will be a mamzer. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Azai, also known as Ben Azai. Matzasi Megillas Yuchsin b'Yushalayim. We found the Megillas Yuchsin Yushalayim because of Ish Ploni Mamzer mi'eshes ish. Ish Ploni is a mamzer. Why? Because he was the product of an eshes ish, which is an isser of chenek, guys. Eshes ish is an isser of what? is Isser of Chenek. So the raya is that why did the Megillas Yuchsin simply could have said it was a mamzer? Why did they have to go out of the way to say where the mamzeros came from? Is to illustrate only the sheet of Rabbi Yeshua, since Eishes Ish is a Chayim Mises Bezdin, that carries with it mamzeros. Let's see Tosus for a second. The smallest Tosus for the big one. Ish ploni mamzer mi Eishes Ish Tema Loinoket Chayim Mises Bezdin Stam. Why was it written? It's a kasha of a Maisa, but why would it should have said Eishes Ish? If you wanted to tell me that the loch is like Rabbi Yeshua, why didn't you say it openly? Why didn't you say it's from an Eishes Ish? Just say it's from a Chayve Mrs. Bezdin. It would have been a more comprehensive lashon, guys. No, guys, it would be much more comprehensive Chayve Mrs. Bezdin than rather than just Eishes Ish. And if you're going to tell me the reason they wrote down Eishes Ish because that's exactly what it was. That's in other words, it wasn't written for Chidushim. That happened to be that this person was born from an Eishes Ish, so they wrote it down. In Kaim Minole Davik Rabbi Yeshua. Then what's the raya? What like that? It's Rabbi Yeshua. In other words, you want to bring a raya to Rabbi Yeshua. Good. What's your raya? Your raya that what is that lechayrit Mrs. Bezdin? Yeah. So why did you say Eishes Ish? You should have said Mrs. Bezdin. And if you're going to tell me the reason they said Eishes Ish is because it wasn't Eishes Ish, then you don't have a raya to Mrs. Bezdin. Maybe it's only Eishes Ish. You don't have a raya to every other Mrs. Bezdin. Maybe only Chenek, right? But says the Gemara, "V'yeshlem did not get Eishes Ish l'revusa. V'yafal pishu kal mishar chayve Mrs. Nave Chenek v'yesh leheta v'chaya oisra." So in other words, Chenek, guys, is the Chenek is the easiest. Chenek is the easiest, right? And Eishes Ish also has a shas heter if husband dies. So even though you have two kulas over here. One, the Mrs. Bezdin is Chenek, and two, it's an erva that is not always an erva because if she gets divorced, she's available. Nonetheless, that's the chiddush that is mamzeris. Kal v'chaymer, if it's a chiyaskila, kal v'chaymer is skila sreifa, any or hariga, decapitation, anything that's more severe, or anything that's an erva that could never go away, right? Certainly, while we carry Mrs. Best, that's the chiddush of Eishes Ish. Two components, guys. One, that it's only chenek, and two, that the Eishes Ish is not always, because if she gets divorced or her husband dies, she will be available. So even despite the fact that it has those two leniencies, nonetheless, it's what we create mamzeris. Okay, so that's our Mishnah. The latter part of the Mishnah is kind of speaking about the issur of achos ishta, your wife's sister. Now we know in the pasuk says clean the Torah, the pasuk says all the way back in Daf Gimel, a long time ago. The pasuk says, right? A woman to her sister you shouldn't take. Litzrar legalis ervasa aleha b'chayeha. It says aleha b'chayeha, right? Dafka b'chayeha is she usher. If your wife dies, then one would be permitted to marry her sister. Okay, it says let's see it inside, and the Gemara is going to say a chiddush in this, or not say a chiddush here. Says the Gemara, because of by ish plain l'kayim de Rabbi Yeshua said ish plaini was not, and he adds to substantiate the words Rabbi Yeshua. Now ish le shemesa, isha that dies muta b'chaysa, you can marry a chaysa openly. You can marry a sister. Gersha, if she gets divorced, of course you can't. Umesa, but if she dies, muta b'chaysa, you would muta b'chaysa. Nisas, if the gerusha would get married la'acha to another individual, umesa consequently die, muta b'chaysa. In other words, any shape or form that this woman, no matter what state she's in, whether she was in a state of eris or kedushin or somebody else, it doesn't make a difference. If once she leaves this world, you muta in her sister. Yevimtoi shemesa, muta b'chaysa. If you have a Yevamot, she dies, you're permitted to marry a sister. Like that. How much part of the Masechta do we have that case of three brothers marrying two sisters and a sister died? A lot of this Masechta was contingent upon that. Chalat slow mesa, muta b'chaysa. Nisas la'acher, if the chalutza marries someone else, umesa muta b'chaysa. So the first part of the Mishnah is the primary part of the daf tonight, in the Inyan of Mamzera. So the question is, where do they know their din from? Now, if you have an art school, I feel bad for you. We're going to go back to Daf Dalid. In fact, we're not going to go back to Daf Daled. We're going to take out a chumash. I'll make it easy. I'll have Rahmanas on you. Go ahead. Let's take out a chumash. Now, I for some reason I'm unable to get this, but I'm going to do it. I think I figured out a way to do this. Okay. Got the people on the Daf on the Zoom. Can you see that what I posted there? When I airdrop that, could you see that? No, you couldn't see that. So I'm airdropping something. Okay, look at your phones then. I was for some reason. I'm unable to do this. I don't know why. Maybe I have to share Zoom. Share. Can you see it now? Okay, great. Okay, so Perich of Gimel Pasuk Aleph, guys. Yeah, no, not Vayikras. Devarim, Perich of Gimel Devarim, Pasuk Aleph. This is a Gemara we had earlier in the Masechta. We had it early in the Masechta. We had this. We had this pasuk. La'ikach ish eseish aviv. A person should marry his father's wife. That means whether it's his mother or his stepmother, he should not marry her. Good, that's clear. There's no question about it, guys. There is no. That's clear. A person should not marry what? His father's wife. In fact, if he's with his father's wife, it's called an issa skila. It says in Pashas Kedoshim, Demeyim Bam. When it says Lashon Demeyim Bam, we learn out from Oivi Yadaini. Every place says Demeyim Bam is skila. So this is the severest of all arayas. Serious to be with a stepmother or a mother is what is the severest is the skila. Good. Now, the next part of the pasuk is very, very ambiguous. V'lo yigala kenaf aviv. He should not go ahead and reveal literally the skirt of his father. What does that mean? What does lightly gala kenaf aviv mean? Good. Now, contingent upon the way we learn, guys, in that pasuk, lo yigala kenaf aviv, it's going to go ahead and tell us what signifies mamzeris. What, in other words, what identity do I give to mamzeris depending upon lo yigala kenaf aviv? So we had a machloikis earlier in the Masechta between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim how to go ahead and learn pshat in that pasuk. Guys, look at me. Rabbi Yehuda says that means anusas aviv. It means if a father is ma'anis a woman, he goes ahead. He's megala. He's with the woman, right? You can't be megala that woman. You can't be with that woman. Now that's a lav. There is no misa. It's a lav. If your father is ma'anis a woman, is a lav to be with that woman. That's what la yigala knaf aviv means. Why does it say in the next pasuk? Skip the next pasuk. I'll tell you why in a second. Go to pasuk gimel. Lo yavai mamze b'kal Hashem. So juxtaposed to lo yigala knaf aviv is lo yavai mamze b'kal Hashem. So what constitutes a mamzer? Anything that is similar to knaf aviv, which is chayvei lavim. That's the shita of Rabbi Akiva. Lo yigala knaf aviv is speaking, according to Rabbi Yehuda, who Rabbi Akiva agrees with, is speaking about a woman that your father had been ma'anis. If you're with that woman, which is a lav, what's the result? La yavai mamze b'kal Hashem. That's the source of Rabbi Akiva, chayvei lavim. That's the source of Rabbi Akiva, chayvei lavim. Good? Now, there is another interpretation of la yigal knaf aviv. And here it is. It's speaking about what? It's speaking about the shemeres yavam of your father. Now let's go. Who is the shemeres yavam of your father? Guys, look at me. Guys, look at me. Who's the shemeres yavam of your father? Meaning, it's your father's brother's wife, known as your aunt, which is a chiv kares. Eshes achi aviv, the wife of your father's brother. That's your aunt. And he dies. She now falls. Your aunt is falling to who? To your father. Your aunt is falling to your father. So now, if you would be with that woman, you would get kares. You get kares.
You only get first.
Okay, again, two lav could be now. So if that's speaking about Shemeres Yavam and it says La Yavai Mamzer B'Kal Hashem, so now what is a mamzer? Anyone that's chayiv kares, and that's the shita of Shemonat Teimani. That limud La Yigalakaf Aviv, guys, is so that creates mamzeris. That creates mamzeris. Rabbi Yeshua will see in a second. Okay, so that is the Gemara. That is right. The shita of the Chachamim, who also known as Shemonat Teimani, and the shita of Rabbi Akiva. Now, smack in the middle, you have a pasuk in the middle. I skipped over a pasuk. You're making like it's not there at all, because that's speaking about a person who is incapable of fathering a child because of physical problems, right? He has physical problems in the male anatomy, and which we will get to in this Masechta, by the way. We'll get to in this Masechta, by the way. But since he can't have children, so Layavai Mamza can't be going on him. Guys, since he can't have children, Layavai Mamza can't be right. He can't do anything. So it's as if it's not there at all. That's what Tosfos says. That's how we do away with that pasuk. A brilliant interpretation. So those are your setup. Okay, this is all before we saw the Gemara. Yes, Harold. Okay, it's a question whether that is Yubi Chayev Umbi Mamzeris over there, because according to basically over here it's Sher Basa. It's only one that comes from a relative. It has to be a relative of a matter of arroyas. That's a chayv lav, but it only in this Mishnah, not in another Mishnah, yes. In another Mishnah, yes. Okay, because there, when he marries a gerusha, the child's a chalal. The child's a chalal, it's not a mamza, right? The first Mishnah, a ben gerusha ben chalutz is a chalal, it's not a mamza. That's how it would fit in. That's why it wouldn't be mamzeris. Good. Where kohen gadol, the same thing would be. Okay, so now. My time with Rabbi Akiva, guys. What's the reason for Rabbi Akiva? Now you're all experts, right? What's the reason Rabbi Akiva who holds that Chavi Lavim creates some zeris? The first part of the pasuk is a person should marry his stepmother or his mother. Nor should reveal the knaf of his aviv. Knaf shira aviv, the knaf that your father saw. Lo yigala, you should not go ahead and be megala. So your father now. Now, what does that mean? The Sabalak Rabbi Yehuda, he holds like the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. What is Rabbi Yehuda of the opinion? What does Rabbi Yehuda hold? Rabbi Yehuda holds that pasuk is speaking. It's speaking about a woman who had been forced by what? By one's father. The Havile Chave Lavim, which is Chave Lavim. The Samech Leim right next to it, Layavai Mamza B'Kal Hashem. Alma, what do you see? Mahane, from relationships that are similar to this, Havi Mamza, that you're a Mamza. Now, what about to what extent do we take Chayve Lavim? In other words, Heshi brought up a good point. What happens if a Kohen Gadol marries an Almana, or a Kohen marries a Gerusha? So there, the child's not a Mamza because we know the child is a Chalal. The child is a Chalal, correct? So we see clearly, it's not every Chayve Lavim. It has to be Chayve Lavim similar to Anusas Aviv in this Mishnah. It has to be the Lashon of the Gemara, Ezeu Mamza Kol She'er Basa. It has to be a relative, right? So therefore, the Gemara now continues and wants to expand. Ula Rebbe Simai, who has a more expansive interpretation of Rabbi Akiva regarding Mamzeris. The Marbe She'er Shar Chayve Lavim. The lav she'er. Let's say you include shar chayve lavim that is not machmas kurva. For example, guys, amoin lo yavai amoin b'chal Hashem. You marry an amoini. What is it? The Charles Mamza, according to Rabbi Akiva. It's a lav, but the Charles Mamza. It's not machmas kurva. It's nothing to do with relations of relativity. It's not pashas achremos, right? Nonetheless. So in other words, in our Mishnah, you would only know what. Similar to Anusas Ovim, one that's created machmas about a relation. Masha'en King, let's say Amun Moav, which is not machmas relation, or Ula Rabbi Yesheva, who has a more expansive. The Marba Afilu Chayve Asay. He says even Asay, fellas. The pasuk says, like Sasabi Adomi. If you have the pasuk opens pasuk Ches. Like Sasabi Adomi, do not hate Adomi ki achichu. Like Sasabi Mitzri ki ger yisi ba'artzoi. So you can't marry a mitzvah up to the third generation. right? After the third generation, you could. So this is what happens if you would marry. There's no lav. It doesn't say you can't marry. We're inferring that since you could after 3, you can't by 1 and 2. This is called a lav that is inferred as a result of an assay. It's the next madrega, right? That's the next madrega. So how would you know that Rabbi Akiva would hold that a lav that's not stated? It's only inferred to as a result of an assay. How do you know, in fact, that there? Rabbi Sheva says b'mamzeirus according to Rabbi Akiva. Said, how do you know that? Says the Gemara. It says naftalu mivaloi yavai. The vav, the mivaloi, not it doesn't say lo yavai mivaloi. It says viloi, the extra vav will go ahead and be more expansive. So right now we have, according to our Gemara, we have she'er. We call Rabbi Akiva learning out from Anusas Aviv because he learns like Rabbi Yehuda. Lo yigala knaf Aviv means what? Anusas Aviv. We know, according to Rabbi Yeshevav, who says essay, and Rav Simoy, who says even lav share, one that's not have to do with relations, he learns something viloi. So that's the shita of Rabbi Akiva. That's the shita of Rabbi Akiva. The Shimon HaTeimani Savala Kirabanan. Shimon HaTeimani who says Chayve Karis, guys. He holds like the Rabbanan. The Amri, when it says the pasuk says Lo Yigala Knaf Aviv, B'Shemeres Yavim Shel Aviv HaKasim Medaber. It's speaking about your aunt. It's speaking about one who's felled yibum to your father. If that is a chi of what? Of krisis. V'samachle lo yavei mamzer. Almem m'chayvei krisis havei mamzer. So chayvei krisis what? Is a mamzer. Let's see Rashi on this guy. Savala k'Rabbanan. Rabbi Shimon HaTimani holds like the Rabbanan. The pligi ad Rabbi Yehuda, who argue on Rabbi Yehuda, b'noisen al anusa, by regarding marrying what? Anusa sav. V'amri it's speaking about Shemeres Yavam, the Havile Eishes Achi Aviv, who in fact is your aunt. It's the wife of your father's brother, Ubekaris, and that's a Chi of Karis. The Haida Hada Kosva Mishnah Torah. What's the whole reason that if it was in Parshas Achrimos, why do we repeat it in Parshas Kitzetzei? Mishum lemismachle layavay mamzer. The whole purpose was to what? To put the tellus that's mamzer. Lashmin and v'yesh mamzer mechayve krisis. In other words, we all know that an ant is usher. Guys, the azhara for an ant, guys, the azhara for an ant is in Parshas Achrimos. The punishment for an ant is in Parshas Kedoshim. Why are you repeating in Parshas Kiseitzei? For one reason, to put it next to Lat, to identify what exactly is a mamzer. So now you have 2 shittas as we spoke of very clearly. Okay, now let's look at it. Let's look at the pasuk again. Because we're going to get the Shita of Rabbi Yeshua. Shita of Rabbi Yeshua. Let me see if this works. Here we go. Now we, according, okay, guys, you can see it. We, according to both opinions, said the Layavai Mamzer is going back on. We said, according to both opinions, that Layavai Mamzer is going back on Lo Yigala Kanaf Aviv. Good. Mm-hmm. The Rabbi Yeshua's of the opinion is going back in the beginning of the pasuk. La yikach ish es eishes aviv. A person should marry eishes aviv. Eishes aviv, guys, is skila. Therefore, a mamzer is going on that. It's not going on the latter part of the pasuk. It's going on the first part of the pasuk. Because if it was going on the latter part of the pasuk, why you have to say la yikach ish es eishes aviv at all, guys? Why would you have to say it at all? If it just means chayve lavim according to one, chayve kares to the other to identify a mamzer, just go ahead and say lo yigala knaf aviv. Why mention lo yikach ish eshes aviv? Why are you mentioning that at all? Elowat, it's mentioned there to tell me that's kreis mamzeris because that's chayve Mrs. Bezdin. Now you have to ask according to him why to say lo yigala knaf aviv, which we will. Okay, that's the lima. That's the lima. Let's see it. So according to Yeshua, it's going on the previous part of the pasuk, not the latter part of the pasuk. And therefore, you have a tremendous machloikus how the Torah Shabbat how it evolved, how to define exactly what a mamzer is based upon the interpretation of this obscure lo yigala knaf aviv, which is cryptic, versus lo yikach ish eshes aviv, which is much more open. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yeshua lichdei rachmanu lo yigala. Right. The Torah, if it meant only lavin or karis or krisus, it should have said lo yigala. Lo yikach lamali. Why does it have to tell me lo yikach ishes eshes aviv? Elolav hachikama. This is what's telling me. Lo yikach, from the word lo yikach, Ad lo yigala, until the word lo yigala. What do you find in between, guys? What Eishes Aviv, Havi Mamzer. In other words, you have two goalposts. Over here, you have one that says what? Lo yikach. Here you have lo yigala. And what does it say in the middle? Eishes Aviv, which is what? Chayve Mises Bezdin. That's the way Rashi interprets this Gemara, and that's the way we will continue. Now, so therefore, lo yigala havi mamzer tfei lo yigala havi mamzer lo yikach ad lo yigala havi mamzer tfei lo havi. More than that, less than that is not a mamzer. Less than chavi mis is not a mamzer. Okay, what does he do with lo yigala? Let's see Rashi, guys. Let's see Rashi where it gets wide 3 lines down. Lo yikach ish eseshes aviv lamali lemichtav. If you just want to tell me that it's speaking about chiyav karis or lav, just say lo yigala. Why would you have to tell me at all about lo yikach ish eseshes aviv? Elishmami na midikasvei. When you did write it, hakamashmon. Here's the chiddush. Lo yavei mamzer ala koi. The mamzer is going on that. It's going back on the first part of the pasuk on lo yikach ish eseshes aviv. Dimino hu dahavei mamzer mishum dechayvei misasu. It's not going on legal knaf aviv. Vikasha, you're going to ask knaf aviv lemay kasve. So why you write it? You know why? If it's shemeres yavam, tell me you have 2 lavim, guys. 1, the lav of being with your aunt, and 2, a lav of being with your father's yevama. Eresachi loisagala the lav loyagala knaf aviv. Be by nusas of vashmina dasura. And if it's speaking about nusas of it to teach me that it's asur in the first place. So that's why it says over there. Good. Okay, so just quick hazara. Lo yigal kanaf aviv next to lo yavei mamzer, right? According to Rabbi Kiva, anusas aviv chayve lavim. According to Shemar Teimane, Shemeres Yavam chayve krisis because it's your aunt. Lo yigal kanaf aviv mamzer. According to Yeshua, lo yigala, no, it's going from what? The first part. What's the first part? Lo yikach eshes aviv, your father's wife. It's a skila, and that's what it's going on. What that is creates mamzeris. Beautiful. Beautiful understanding. Oh, guys, listen to this. Someone who is every moide boila nida. My son just asked me this the other night. What happens when you're in nida? Now this is a vaday saita, guys. Vaday saita, vaday nida, she'ena vlad mamzer. And these are chayve lavim. Actually, nida is chayv karis. It's a chayv karis. So if a man's with his wife and she's in nida, the child's a pogum. The child is not. People are hesitant in marrying bali tshuva often because they didn't go to the mikvah because the child will be a pogum, not because I'm saying this. You won't be able to get married in the first place, right? You won't be able to get married in the first place. Everyone's moida there, and they're moida by a saita, a vaday saita. Now a man can't live with his wife; she's a vaday saita. What happens if he does and creates a child? Everyone's moida that these children will not be mamzerim. Why? Nida. The tafsi ba kedushin, guys. What's our rule of thumb? What creates mamzeris? When it's a union that Hashem doesn't want. If a man's mekadosh and nida, very often we've had what the chuppah nida. One of my children, one of my children had it. It used to be very commonplace. But they have tremendous amount of drugs to regulate a woman's cycle. But in my day, it wasn't rare at all. You used to have to schedule the wedding. You'd have to speak to the girl to schedule the wedding to know exactly when her time of the month is. Really, that's what I used to do it. Because again, or else it was chuppah nida. So what do you see? That kedushin is typhus. Kedushin is typhus, and therefore, since kedushin is typhus, the child can't be what? A mamzer. And how do you know kedushin is typhus? Shnamar v'tehi nidasa Allah v'tehi afilu b'shas nidasa tafsi ba kedushin. Even b'shas nidasa kedushin is typhus. Soita nami da tafsi ba kedushin. Soita as well. Is tafsi ba kedushin. You're not also. It's also to live with your wife, but you're married to her. Rashi says the tafsi kedushin leisha the afla akasha zinsa like pokamina kedushin. The first one doesn't leave just because she was mizana. The only way to get rid of your wife is with a get. She's mizana doesn't get rid of her. May make you also live with her, but it's like get rid of her. Tanya nami hachi akol moedim ebala nida vala saita v'al shemeres yavam sheina vlad mamza. Everyone's moedim vala nida vala saita and shemeres yavam sheina vlad mamza. In other words, shemeres yavam is a yivam l'shuk. She's chayve lavim, so even like Rabbi Kiva, you won't be chayev. Rabbi shemeres yavam misafgulates and supik yikarav yikishmol. We have a Gemara. Gemara in Tzadik, we'll see Gemara later on. And Tzadik base, what's the halacha of shemeres yavam? Whether she's considered, whether like Rav would be a mamzer, like Shmuel would not be a mamzer. And that we conclude the sugya of mamzeres. Okay, so now we have the The latter part of the Mishnah, Shimon ben Azai telling us what, right? What exactly he heard, right? What exactly he heard. So I'm Shimon ben Azai. Tadi Shimon ben Azai. I found the Megillah Yuchsin. They have these the people have these Yuchsin from the Hasidish and the Rebbes. They have these Yuchs where they miyachas to. Everyone who goes back to the Maral goes back to Rashi. Anyone who goes back to Rashi goes back to David. So it's not very, very common. They have these whole books of Yuchsin of how they attain that. If you ever see family trees, right? The family trees, then there's a certain given that the Maral he did the legwork for you, the Maral. He got you back to Rashi, which wasn't so far. It was a few hundred years from Rashi. Maral was about 450, 500 years. The difference between the two, 600 years, the difference. And Rashi had a Yichus brief all the way back to David HaMelech. Rashi had that. So that legwork was done. So if you're able, in the year 1900, go back 300-400 years to the Maral, many people can do it. You can figure out exactly where you come from. So there's Yichus brief. So they found this Yichus brief or lack of Yichus brief regarding this person. There's a Megalah Yichus Mishlayim because of Ish Plani Mamzem Yeshasish. Now, they found in addition to that two more things. The Kosovo, in addition, was written Menashe Mishnah Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Kavanaki. The Limud and Mishnayos and Rashi says the Brises as well, which is a subject of Rishonim, is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. We had guys a Machloikis and Daf in Zion. We wanted to come out of Bayev Rava. They switched around the Shita to come out by a suffix. The second marriage, if you stayed married to the second child, is a Vade Mams, a suffix Mams. So could you marry somebody or not? We said he wanted to come out to Eliezer ben Yaakov because he wanted to come out to kill Chesva. Because Allah is like Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Kav and Naki. You know, Kav, like Kav is a small amount, but Naki, he's clean. So wherever he is, that's what he found in that. And the third thing they found is there, because of Menashe Harages Yeshaya, that Menashe killed Yeshaya. So the rest of the parak is going to be discussing the Menashe killing Yeshaya. So let's go background, guys. Background. Take a look at me. Here's the background. Chizkiyahu HaMelech was a tzaddik Yisrael Olam. They thought Chizkiyahu was Mashiach. He was just an unbelievably great person. Despite his father being a Russia, he was a great person, Chizkiyahu. Chizkiyahu saw Baruch HaKodesh, ben Nevuah, he was going to have a child that was a Russia Marusha. And that child inevitably was Menashe. Menashe, it was such a Russia, the Gemara says they never chelik on Haba. The Gemara, we saw that a Pshat and chelik, they had to dig a tunnel for Kodesh Baruch Hu to get him there, past the Malachim to get him there. It was a Russia Marusha. He saw he wasn't going to have any children, and as a result, he did not get married. He didn't get married. He was sick. He was holding by dying. He was holding by dying because he wasn't being kind to Rivya. Came along the Navi Yeshaya and said to him, "What's my high?" And he told him, "I'm going to have a child, Menashe. I don't want this child to be born." So he said very famous words, "Bahade kishu derachman olama." What are you getting involved in Hashem's secrets? You got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do, and that's it. You got to do what you got to do, right? And in fact, so in order to hopefully make sure that this child will be a little better, so Yeshaya gave him his daughter. I don't know. He requested his daughter. He gave him his daughter in marriage. So therefore, Yeshaya was Menashe's Zayda. He was his maternal grandfather. He was maternal grandfather. And Menashe ended up killing Yeshaya. Which is Gemara. He had to get an idea. Just to take it one step, not in this Gemara, but for Chinuch, it's a fantastic thing. He did tshuva at the end of his life, Menashe. He did tshuva at the end of his life. And why? And he was quoting Pesukim that his father taught him. So, guys, think about it. He had Nevuah. So he had Nevuah that it's going to be a Russia. That was his Nevuah. He was going to be a Russia. If any father would have a right to say, "Listen, you do what you want to do. I'm not busy with you." Nonetheless, Chizkiyahu learned Torah with him, and that learning the Torah with him, ultimately, no matter what, it saved him. Never give up on a child. Never give up on a child. It's a big musahasel. If Chizkiyahu didn't give up on Menashe, no one has the right to give up on their child. For Rabbi, it's a good thing to hear. For parents, it's a good thing to hear. Never give up. Never give up. Okay, so here's the story. Menashe harages Yeshaya. Amar Rava, maiden die in Evikadle. Went ahead, Menashe. He judged Yeshaya, and he killed him. How did he judge him? He said that you were saying that Nevi'im Navi Sheker. You were saying Moshe Rabbeinu was a Navi Sheker. Why? In other words, you were saying we know Moshe is true, and what you were saying is shakranis. Amalei, Moshe Rabcha, like Rabcha, and Moshe Rabcha, he's like I got there, right? Amar, Kilo Yerani Adam V'chai. No one can see me and live. But at Amit, and what did you say? The Ere Es Hashem Yeshiva Kisei Ram Benisa. I saw Hashem sitting. How can you see him? Moshe told you can't, and you Yeshai have a nevuah you can see. You're a Navi Sheker. Moshe Rabcha Amar, Mik Hashem Elokeinu V'chol Kareinu Elav. You call out to him. Anyone calls out to him, you'll be answered. Yad Amrit, Dirshu Hashem Behimatzo, seek Hashem when he can be found. Mashma, he can't be found all the time. Right? Navi Sheker. Third Taina, Moshe Rabcha Amar, Moshe Rabcha said, Es Mispa Yomecha Amale, you'll fulfill your days. Yad Amrit, and you say, Vaisafti El Yomecha Chamesh Shana, you'll get what? You told Yeshaya said to Chizkiyo, you're sick. Marry my daughter, you'll get 15 more years. You get 15 more years. But it says that what? You have a set amount of time. What do you mean? How could you add on? Those are the three tainas that what? That Menashe had on Yeshaya. And now Yeshaya really had answers to it, but he was hesitant for a reason, as we'll see. Yeshaya, I know he's not going to listen, but all right, it's a kangaroo court. He's got me set up, whatever I tell him, he's not going to listen to. The Amalei, right? And if I do tell it to him and he doesn't listen, Ashrei Mezid, that'll make him an amazing. Azaid is love for his Amiko. So I won't tell him. Let him go ahead. Think he's killing me. What? I'll be a shoygeg rather than amazing when I tell him the truth. Omar. So what did he say? Omar Shem. Yeshaya said one is Shem Hashem, and Ivla Ba'arza, and he ended up going ahead being what? Swallowed up by a tree. He was ended up being swallowed by a tree. Asiula Arza, they found it. They found the tree. Then Asura, they began to cut the tree. Kimata like Pume, when he came to the place where his mouth was, Noach Nafshi, that's when he killed Yeshaya. Mishum Da'am, it says, Ubesoich Am Tomes Vasayim Anochi Yoshev. So he called him Am Tomes Vasayim. So therefore, since Tomes Vasayim was punished over there. Good. Yerushalmi, guys, how they find him? How they find him in the tree, guys? I was wondering that. So Yerushalmi Perichelik Halacha Beis says that he saw the tzitzis of Yeshaya hanging out of the tree. The tzitzis, that's how I found them. The tzitzis are hanging out of the tree. That's how he found them. That's how he found them. I was wondering that how he found them. So, he found them. So now, what does he say? To answer each one, what would he? Mishum Amar b'toich am talking. Kosher kroyada. The bottom line is l'chayra Menashe raised some good points. Says Lemar no. The Eres Hashem and Yusur Hashem Kedetanya. Kol Neviim nistaklu b'spaklayu she'enam ira. All Neviim they look through, let's say, a looking glass that was not so clear. Moshe Rabbeinu nistaklu b'spaklayu ira, but Moshe looked through a looking glass that was there. Rashi explains. Moshe had a clear view that you can't see Hashem. But if it's not so clear, you think you are seeing Hashem. So Yeshaya thought he was seeing. Dirshu Hashem being Matzai. It says that it says that you can go ahead. Mika Hashem Elokeinu b'chol kareinu elav habiyachid abetzibur. By Yitzibur, at any time we can call that HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yachid we know is Dirshu Hashem being Matzai. B'yachid eimas, when of course is that? So we all know the answer. Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Ravua Elu Asar Yom Shemin Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim. These are the 10 days in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And what about the last thing? Es misbar Yemecha Amalei Tanoihi. It's machlokes Tanoim. The Tanya. Es misbar Yemecha Amalei. You'll fulfill your days. Elu Shnei Doris. These are the years of a person's life. Zacha Mashlim Loi. If he's Zaycha, he's mashlim those days. Lei Zaycha Peichsen Loi. Then he loses. Divrei Bekiva. Chacham Moimim Zacha Meisifim Loi. Loi Zaycha Peichsen Loi. If he's Zaycha, he can add on to those days. He's not Zaycha, he can decrease it. So l'chayra, this is what he held. He said, "Vasafti l'cha." He held like what? Like the chachamim. You could add on to days. So Amulay l'Rekiva, Harioime vasafti al yamecha chmesha shishana. How can you say that what? That a person is limited. You Rekiva saying that what? That you can't add on anything, right? But yet it says that what? Mefurish that what he added on 15 years to what? To Yeshaya's life, to Chizkiya's life. So Amulahem said Rekiva mishaloy sifuloi. They added on. That was his. In other words, he was supposed to lose because he was He didn't listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the 15 years he got was ones he was supposed to get all along had he not gone ahead and sinned. Teida, Shari Novi Oimed Misnava, the Novi stood up way in the time of Yeravam, who was way before. Yeravam was the time of, it was Shlomo's son was Rechavam, who split the Malchus with Yeravam. And then it said, Hine ben Noila lebeis David, and Yoshio Shema, he'll be Yoshio. Yoshio was a descendant of Chizkiyahu. So Chizkiyahu wasn't getting married, Yoshio wasn't not a Havamina, Chizkiyahu wasn't a Havamina, right? So what do you see? Vadayin le'nola Menashe. And Menashe as yet wasn't born. So what do you see? That what? So it says Rashi that B'shas Chol B'shal Chizkiyahu Dayin le'nola Menashe Shemimenu Yotze Yeshio Aviyayim B'shas Chol Yagazu Livches Mishanav. The time when he was sick was Geyser that what to take away from his years. So you see that was predetermined that what he should live longer. Why should in other words he was supposed to die and not have a child. So what happened? He gave him back the life that is. In other words, guys, Chizkiyahu was the forefather of Yoshiyahu, right? So obviously he had to have a child. He had to have Menashe to have Yoshiyahu. He had to have Menashe, right? He had a Menashe. So now it had to be he lost years of his life by sinning, by not being kind of Perivia. Yet he's supposed to have a child. So Elamad Safti must be that what? That he added on the years that he's supposed to get to produce that child. That's the Hezbollah Gemara. Rabbana answer Miksiv Michiskiel lebeis David Ksiv. Right? It does say Michiskiel lebeis David Ksiv. Michiskiel no it doesn't have to be Chiskiel. It could be anybody. It could have been anybody. So therefore, the years that he added on was years that he wasn't supposed to have in the Iran. And that's not like it's been the two. The bottom line is we can answer up Fataich, right? To the Mataritz, Menashe's Taina, that how can you add on if it's a set amount, right? If you Yisaicha, you can even get more. Yisaicha, you can get more. Okay, the last part of the Mishnah dealt with what? That a sister in the lifetime, that as long as the sister's dead, is the wife dies, then you can marry the sister. As long as the wife dies, whether she dies as a Gerusha, whether she dies as Yevamot, if she dies outright, doesn't make a difference when she dies. B'chayeha, Allah b'chayeha, you're permitted to get married. Says the Gemara, Ishta Shemesa, Yevamot Shemesa, Amar Rabbi Yosef, Kanshan Rebbe Mishnah Shenet Tzricha. This is a Mishnah that was not necessary. Why says Rashi? The Zil Kori Be'Ravhu, Allah b'chayeha. You go to any child in any school, they'll tell you, Allah b'chayeha, Shlei Nesra Chaysa, El b'chayeha, Hajan Alecha Chaylis, Hajan Alecha Chaylis, Hajan Alecha Chaylis.
Say sphere.
Sphira. Yesterday was 9.